Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you, Ustadh Amjad Tarsin, for your time and lesson. I'm reminded of the line of our impoverishment before Allah, and another line of Satan's other name being the great despairer, great slinking whisperer, and great liar. I struggle at the moment with my aging state, mid 40s, and it's interesting how this anxiety almost keeps revisiting one in life. And it makes me think about how this is linked to a momentary reduction in trust in God or forgetfulness of His power, His absolute power, and His attributes. As we get older, our bodies become a fight in health, and Shaitan takes advantage of that human weakness. I'm grateful to you for the reminders of how to overcome this. Is there a particular dua to help with dealing with aging and fears of the future provision and death in addition to your lesson today? Or is Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil good enough to get us through, inshallah? I believe it is, and may Allah reward you. Ameen.
Jazakumullah khair. That's an excellent question. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward the questioner. So there's a lot to be said there, but it is an excellent question. And one of the things that you highlighted in the question is that some things get easier as we get older, and maybe some other things get a little bit more difficult. And perhaps experiencing the beginnings of old age, right? When a person arrives at 40 years and beyond, those are usually times when people start to feel their health and their strength and their faculties begin to slowly weaken, and that's natural. So what do we do in those moments? Because maybe the shaitan, he definitely will try to take advantage of every situation to place blocks and barriers between us and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The first thing to do is to seek out people who have deep and genuine love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and yearning to meet Him. There are people, great righteous people, righteous women, righteous men, great scholars, environments where there are people who are dedicated to this, great people. And sometimes they might be well known, sometimes they might not be well known. In many cases, they might not be well known. If you are able to, visiting the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, going and performing Umrah, going and performing Hajj. The reason I'm saying those things is because in order to counteract some of the challenges that could come with uh, deteriorating health or challenges that come later in life, you have to proactively develop a good opinion of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and strengthen the love and yearning to meet Him. So we sometimes could treat it as a fear of death, which is natural. We could sometimes, even, which is worse than a fear of death, is that sometimes we're scared. We're scared to stand before Allah because we have a lot to be ashamed of. But we need to cultivate that yearning. We need to cultivate an understanding of the expansiveness of His mercy, of the immeasurable blessings that He has bestowed upon us, the extent of His mercy, subhanahu wa ta'ala, etc. We need to cultivate that. And one of the greatest ways to do that is to be around the people of Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are things that we can learn and lessons that we can learn and books that we can read and so forth. And that is very important. Then there are people that we can learn from who have already embodied those teachings. That is even more powerful. That is even an even greater healing and medicine for our hearts and souls. That's one thing to do. The second thing to do is to continue in dhikr. Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil is definitely excellent, even for this particular situation, but also increasing in ibadah, increasing in ibadah. That Allahumma salli wa sallam ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa alih. I'm trying to remember the particular hadith. Yes, now I remember it. That the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wa alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam, he said in Ramadan, every Ramadan, the angel Jibreel alayhi salam would review the entire Quran with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In the last year of the Prophet's life, they reviewed it twice. They reviewed it entirely 2 times over. And one of the lessons from that hadith, scholars mention, is that as we get older, we should engage in more devotion and more ibadah because we are more aware of how imminent our meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. So those are just a few things to keep in mind. And being in the company of people who are focused on the meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings peace. And I'll sorry, there's one last thing that came to mind that I heard from my teacher. He said, when you direct all of your fears to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will give you safety and peace from everything that you fear. When you direct all of your fears and all of what you are scared of and all of your worries, when you direct and put them all to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will suffice you and take care of all of your fears.